Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's John Campea, and this is our open spoiler discussion about Ant-Man and the Wasp. Look, in case you couldn't tell already, I used the word spoiler. This is an open spoiler discussion about Ant-Man and the Wasp. So we are going to get into tons of spoiler details. If you have not seen Ant-Man and the Wasp yet, and you don't want to know anything about the movie, click away right now. Just add this video to your favorites list. Come back and visit it after you've seen the movie. If you're somebody who doesn't really care about hearing spoilers before seeing a movie, then fine, you're good. But I just want to give you that heads up and warning, because I often get people complaining, even when I put spoiler in the title, they complain about spoilers. So I just want to give you that heads up. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to give a little bit of a quick summary on my thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp. And then we're going to go right into dive into your questions and your comments, your observations, your theories about what we saw in Ant-Man and the Wasp and what it could mean for the MCU moving forward. We're going to discuss that at the time. Now, I already put up my non-spoiler review of Ant-Man and the Wasp a number of days ago, and I enjoy this movie a lot. I thought it was a hell of a lot of fun, especially coming off of like Avengers Infinity War, and I think I described it as a really nice palate cleanser. Well, you know, I kind of described like Solo the same way, but Avengers Infinity War, coming out of that, Ant-Man and the Wasp was a really nice palate cleanser. When you come from something really heavy and all that kind of stuff that we got in Infinity War, having a really solid, fun, entertaining, standalone, truly a standalone movie like Ant-Man and the Wasp is really refreshing. It's a really nice thing. So I got a big kick out of it. I thought it was wonderful. Now, one of my bigger problems with the film, and I'm sure some of you guys may mention this too, was the Walton Goggins character. Don't get me wrong, Walton Goggins is a great performer, but for whatever reason, this character they gave him was subpar at best. Now, it's not all that important because Walton Goggins' character wasn't even the main antagonist in the film. He was like a secondary antagonist, which is fine, obviously, to Ghost. And Ghost is fine, but I thought they really underused him. Look, overall, I thought Ant-Man and the Wasp was great. I enjoyed it a great deal. I do believe, though, I think I like the first one a little bit better. Just because you guys know how much I love that first Ant-Man and the Wasp. I lost my mind for it. This one, a great follow-up. It's a great sequel, a really good film to follow up Avengers Infinity War with, but I still think I prefer the first one a little bit better. Still, very funny, very charming, all that kind of stuff. But you guys heard me give my review of it before. Let's dive over to your guys' observations and thoughts and questions about the movie. So let's get into it right now. And we're going to start things off with Curtis Lopez, who writes, I love how the majority of the film is a lighthearted palate cleanser. Is a lighthearted palate cleanser. Then the mid-credit scenes hits and brings us back to cruel reality. Yeah, I remember watching the movie, wondering, first of all, I went into the movie thinking there was a chance that we could see the dusting in a post-credit scene. But as the movie got rolling, it really felt like, you know what? I started to think, no, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do the dusting because they're really keeping this one lighthearted, a lot of kinetic energy going with it, very positive, very fun, very funny, entertaining, blah, blah, blah. And I remember thinking about halfway through the film, yeah, you know what? No, they're not going to do the dusting in the mid or post any of the post-credit scenes. They're not going to do it. Okay, that's fine. And then the post-credit scene happens and they do the dusting. It's like, well, and I got to tell you, man, both times I've seen the movie, the audience, like the gasp. And you know what? The whole reason I thought they're not going to do the dusting now, because I was watching the movie and I'm thinking, yeah, I don't think they're going to do this. I think that all set up perfectly the reaction they were going to get from the audience as a result of the dusting. And so the dusting hit and it's like, okay, yeah, that was very well done. Very, very well done. And you're right. It kind of brought you back to the reality of the situation in the MCU. Now, the one question, I got to admit this. Couldn't talk about this in the main review, obviously. Here's the problem I had with that. What are they doing on a rooftop? Just doing some random, let's do some quantum realm. When at this point, if the dusting happens, that means the day before it was all over the news that aliens had invaded the planet again. Iron Man had gone missing. There are battles going on, all this kind of stuff. But, Scott and Hank and, the family, they all say, well, whatever. Everybody else worry. Let's go do some more tests on Quantum Realm up on that rooftop. This seems like a good idea to do that. It's like, it was all over the news. Giant alien spacecraft coming down to Earth. Battle ensuing in the streets of New York City. Tony Stark is missing. Blah, blah, blah. And they just go, whatever. Let's go run some tests. Let's do some Quantum Realm tests. Let's go do that right now. That is the only part. It's a great mid-credit scene, but that is the only part of that drove me a little bit crazy. Thinking, in the midst of all, this is what they're doing, in the midst of alien ships coming to the Earth and Tony Stark missing and battles going, this is what they're doing? I just think they should have had, I think the beginning of the mid-credit scene should have had an acknowledgement. Like, maybe, I don't know, Scott going, maybe have Scott saying, okay, no, I get why we're doing this. I just really feel like we should be on our way to New York right now. Or some kind of acknowledgement as to what's happening on the planet that they would have known about. But anyway, that's just me going off on that. Okay, Curtis follows that up with, I'm wondering who will get Scott out of the quantum realm and what happened to Casey, her mom and stepdad. Well, we can ask that question about what happened to Luis, what happened to everybody, what happened to Ghost, what happened to Laurence Fishburne, what happened to everybody else in the movie. We don't know. So we're probably just going to have to hold off on that and figure that out later. I think Scott probably figures out a way to get himself out. That's the only thing that really makes sense. Scott figures out a way to get himself out. But I'll tell you what, it did surprise me that Hank got dusted too, because before Ant-Man and the Wasp, my theory going into the film was that Hank Pym was going to play a pivotal part and understand, because nobody understands the quantum mechanics in the quantum realm better than Hank Pym. So my theory going into Ant-Man and the Wasp was that in Avengers 4, Hank Pym was going to play a pivotal part in coming up with some kind of time travel concept. And I thought he would be a major part of that. So him getting dusted, that was a surprise to me. Now, when they're in the mid-credits scene, and you've got Scott going, guys, I thought, oh, okay, they did the dusting, but I still expected Hank was going to be standing there alone, like looking in shock, because he just saw his daughter and his wife turn to dust before his eyes. But nope, they dusted Hank too, and I got to admit, that surprised me. That did surprise me. All right, Curtis follows up. Like the first four things all came from Curtis. Okay, Curtis follows up with Janet possessing Scott was hilarious. I'll tell you what. At first, I thought that was cheesy. At first, I really did think that was cheesy. But then they got into it, and I got to admit, I'm sitting there as an audience member, and I got wrapped up in it. So yeah, I got to admit, even though at first I thought, oh, this is dumb, by the time that scene ended, I realized I was completely on board with it, and it did work for me. All right, Curtis follows up again with, the de-aging with Michelle Pfeiffer is the best I've seen out of any movie that did de-aging. It looked amazing. But both on her and on Michael Douglas. Now, we've already seen them do that with Michael Douglas in the first Ant-Man. Seeing them do it again here was great. Seeing what they did with Michelle Pfeiffer looked great. Again, you can do that sort of stuff in short portions, just in short spurts, because it's incredibly intensive to do it. And expensive. You see, a lot of people see these like 1-2 minute scenes with de-aging and think, oh, just do a whole movie like that. You don't understand how hard that is and how expensive that would be. But no, they really did do a very good job on that. Absolutely, they did a fantastic job on that. All right, Hector Jeter writes, I really enjoyed. Not as good as the first, but overall was a fun, action-packed sequel. I felt the whole movie was a game of cat and mouse, with the whole getting the lab from whoever it was. 8 out of 10. Yeah, I big fan of it. Again, I think I liked the first one a little bit more, but this was a truly a worthy sequel. Totally worked out. And you're at a lot of great action. Like, you realize there's like always something happening. Like there was a very kinetic energy to the movie that's just always plowing forward. The narrative was incessantly just moving forward all the time. A lot of movies, even some of the better comic book movies, can meander and kind of stall a little bit here and there. But I felt like Ant-Man and the Wasp just really had this really good flow. Again, kinetic energy to it that was just constantly in motion. And great fun action, great creative use of the shrinking and growing powers. They did a lot of very cool creative things with it that I wouldn't have thought of before. So yeah, completely agree, man. They did a really good job. I don't give scores to movies anymore, but if I were, it would come close to your score. It would be really, really close to that 8 out of 10 that you gave it. All right, let's see here. Lycan Zero writes, do you know if the whole Luis telling a story thing was an Edgar Wright invention? It seems similar to a scene in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's also, I could point to 5 or 6 other movies that have like a side character who kind of really talks like that. I mean, so was there something similar to that in an Edgar Wright film? Sure. But we could probably point out to 5 or 6 other examples of that type of character as well. But at the same time, you can't dismiss the notion that maybe the Michael Peña character and his personality was an Edgar Wright invention. You can't dismiss that either. Because look, I mean, they've talked a lot of Edgar Wright's construct of what his Ant-Man world was going to be like did make it into the movie. And Edgar, when you go to that first movie, Edgar Wright's name is all over the credits. They list him as an executive producer. I believe they even gave him a writing credit. They gave him all that kind of stuff. So, pardon me. The notion that Michael Peña's character, or at least a part of his character and that personality, is a carryover from the Edgar Wright rendition of the movie is very feasible. You can't dismiss it. I wouldn't read too much into it. Just because we saw something similar to that in one movie, yeah, but we've seen things similar to that in other movies too. It could totally be a Peyton Reed thing for all we know, but I don't think you can dismiss the notion either. It's very possible. It totally is. All right. Luna Comics writes, hey, John, long time no see. Just wish more like the tremendous effect in many movies, and this is one of them. So I think the way they wrote Ghost, I'm going to be honest with you, I think the way they wrote Ghost, understanding that they wanted this character to be something that just furthers the hero, that just is there as a plot device to further the story of the heroes, then they wrote the character properly. The character as it is not going to be one of my favorite Marvel characters, but it worked perfectly in the movie. And that, at the end of the day, is what good filmmakers do. They understand, oh, don't make this character as badass as you can be, because maybe as badass as this character can be is not what's best for the movie. Sometimes what's best for the movie is a character that would be different than that, and that's how they did Ghost. So understanding how much and how well I think they utilize Ghost to further the story of the hero, you'll have a different movie fans which way that was the best. Felt the same way. I actually thought the Ghost. Now, granted, the final end credit scene with the ant playing drums, I didn't think that was funny, and I certainly didn't think it was worth waiting around to watch. However, just because I didn't find it funny and I didn't think it was worth waiting around to watch at the end, I will admit the times I saw the movie, people were laughing in the theaters. So fine, didn't work for me. Worked for some of you. That's fine. However, they put that end credit scene in the trailer. That end credit scene of the ant sitting there playing the drums, that was in the trailer. You don't put your end credit scenes in the trailer? And by the way, that's fine if it helps sell the movie. I thought that was a dumb part of the trailer. I didn't like the ant sitting there playing drums in the trailers in the first place. So it didn't help the trailers in any way, shape, or form. And now you just revealed the end credit scene of the movie in a trailer? For something that didn't need to be in the trailer and certainly didn't make your trailers any better. So, I mean, that's Like, adore this movie, but that was one of the things they did that I just thought was dumb. Just dumb. If you're good, first of all, it's not even that good of a post-credit scene. But if you're going to make it your post-credit scene, don't give it away in the damn trailer. I don't know how hard that is of a concept, but apparently it was above somebody's head. Because it just, I don't know. It was a bad move, in my opinion. In my opinion, it was a bad move. All right. Ben Kenobi writes, I love the fact that Animal House is in the MCU. I don't recall. Were they watching Animal House in that? And remember, the MCU isn't in a different solar system. I mean, a lot of pop culture is in the MCU, but I don't remember. I got to admit, Ben, I do not remember. Ben follows it up with, mid-credit scene loved, but predictable. Post-credit scene could be the worst post-credit scene in a while. Worse than Howard the Duck, in my opinion. I'll say that other than the Howard the Duck one, I think it is the worst. I still think the Howard the Duck one is the worst, despite the fact that I love Guardians of the Galaxy. The Howard the Duck post-credit scene was stupid. I didn't like that. But, yeah, this is next to the Howard the Duck one for me. It was, yeah, but again, just to reiterate what I already said, I got to admit, even though it didn't work for me, the theaters I was in when the post-credit scene happened, there were a lot of people laughing. So it's just another great example of the subjectivity of it all. It didn't work for me, but that doesn't mean it didn't work for other people, and I'm glad it worked for them. I just don't know why you put it in the trailers, though. That's the part that really got me. All right. Murray Reich writes, so while the team was on the roof, end credits, did anyone bother putting on the TV to see that was going on in New York City, or did they know where? I said, thank you very much, Murray. That's what I was saying earlier. That is the one thing about that whole dusting thing. It's like, wait a minute. So they were all just marks missing? Scott or something at the beginning of the scene even just mentioned, are you sure we shouldn't be going to New York to help? And just Hank says, I'm sure they're dealing with it. This is important. Okay. And then they go on. It just, because the fact that it just seems like they were oblivious to what was going on in the world. Alien ships comes, attacks New York City, Iron Man missing. That doesn't get their attention? I mean, that did drive me. I'm nitpicking. Granted, I'm nitpicking. We're talking about something in a post-credit scene, and I'm nitpicking on it. Totally understand that, and I totally admit that. But I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that it really bothered me. Walking out of the theater, it really did. It didn't affect my overall enjoyment of a great film, no, but that really bothered me. Okay. Dirk Diggler writes, I was so glad that Hope changed her hairstyle. Hope had a bigger part this time. Yay. Oh, yeah, well, clearly, I mean, the name of the movie is Ant-Man. It's not Ant-Man 2, it's Ant-Man and the Wasp. And she was great. The character was wonderful. They made her, and yes, changed her hair. And look, and I remember somebody on the John Campea show was writing, oh, I'm glad they changed her hair because she didn't look good in the first Ant-Man. I'm like, okay, wait a minute, time out. Let's be clear here. Evangeline Lilly, good Canadian kid, by the way. Evangeline Lilly always looks good. You could shave her head, you could give her a mohawk, you could dye her hair plaid. Angeline Lilly, and the way they utilized, again, I was saying this a little bit earlier, about utilized her shrinking powers in her combat technique. And her combat technique, very different from Scott's. But the way she utilized the shrink back, shrink back, shrink back in the midst of combat was really fun to watch. And yes, her hairstyle definitely does look better this time around. Let's see. Ben Kenobi writes, went from 90% to 99%. Everyone will be back when 3/4 of the main characters were dusted at the end. Oh, I see what you're saying. You were 90% sure that most of them were all coming back. Now you're not. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Marvel and their fake killings. I mean, there you go. Look, I love the MCU. Everybody knows this. I love the movies. You know, huge. But nothing's perfect, and one of the things they really do that drives me nuts is all the fake deaths. Oh, we killed the character. No, just kidding. They're not dead. Oh, we killed the character. Just kidding. He came back. Oh, we killed that same character again. I guess he's really dead this time. Nope, he's back. Oh, no, we killed Spider-Man, but we got Spider-Man Homecoming 2 coming. And so, no, yeah, it's the one thing that drives me. But I've been at 100% the whole time. 3/4 of them coming back is 100%. Whether it's all of them is about 50%. I mean, I don't know if they're going to keep anybody dead for that. I mean, anybody that's dead. I think everybody who died in the snap is coming back. Everybody who died in the snap is coming back. And probably some of the characters who died pre-snap are probably also coming back. I can't imagine they're actually going to keep Gamora dead. So Gamora's coming back. You know that too. So, it is what it is. Sam Fisher writes, Ant-Man and Wasp was great. It has really great jokes and running gags, like the whole truth serum. Oh, the truth serum thing was great. But I actually preferred T.I. Oh, T.I. and the Russian to Lewis. Really? Or Luis. They were good, but I thought one of my negatives like talking about like the ghost characters, like the Boogie Woman or the Mamoska or whatever it was, and they just really, really hit home for me. And I was laughing my guts out at them. Absolutely was. And if Sam Fisher follows up, the Baba Yaga running gag. Sorry, that Baba, I said the Momoska or whatever. The Baba Yaga running gag. That, I was just dying. I swear, if I was sipping Coke at the time, it would have came out my nose. I just thought that was hilarious. Then they did the little silence and the little music hit. It was so well done. Let's see. Sam follows it up with, but is it just me or are more heroes getting killed than not? I feel like if Thanos really did get rid of half, then only 2 of 4 would have died, not 3. Well, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, look, if half the world was going to get dusted, then that means you will be standing in a room with 6 people where 3 disappeared. You could be standing in a room with 6 people while all 6 people disappeared. And you could be standing in a room with 6 people and none of you disappeared. I mean, so the fact that you had 4 people on that roof, including Scott, and 3 out of the 4 disappear, that's not an anomaly. That's perfectly fine, because there's going to be some rooftops or some places where 4 people are standing and only 1 disappears, right? So I didn't really find that to be, it's not like every group of people standing around, half of that group will disappear. No, it's just half the planet. That means some places everybody disappears, some places none, some people 2 out of 4, some places 3 out of 4, some places 1 out of 4. As long as it all averages out to be half, then you're good. So I didn't really think it was that statistical of an anomaly, to be honest with you. Okay. Murray Reich writes, now that Hawkeye wasn't in the movie and in Infinity War, do you think he will appear in Captain Marvel, or will they save him for Avengers 4? Well, I think he'd be in Captain Marvel. I mean, the movie takes place in the 80s, so he'll be, what, 12? I mean, he'll be like 8, 9, 10 years old in the 80s. So, no. So, it looks like I am having a streaming problem right now. I'm having a streaming problem. Hold a second. Let me see if I can just get this fixed. Okay, apparently we might be up and running again. Okay, let's continue on with Murray's question here about will they save him for Avengers 4? Oh, I think I have very little doubt, very, very little doubt that we're going to see him in Avengers 4. I feel 100% confident we're going to see him in Avengers 4. Of that, I have no doubt whatsoever. I even think that the very fact that they mentioned him by name in Infinity War and Scott, say, where's Scott and Clint? Well, they're both at home with their families. They're both under house arrest. And Scott is clearly back in it, right? So that's fine. I have very, 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 very little doubt that we're going to see him back. So I'm just going to write something in the live chat board here. Still frozen for you. Please reload the page. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. Sorry about the little getting your question interrupted like that, Murray. Let's move on here. Spencer Smothers writes, did Scott being in the quantum realm save him from the snap? You know, I thought about that. I was wondering about that myself. I honestly don't know. Like, a part of me thinks that being in the quantum realm is irrelevant. It's still part of existence, right? The quantum realm is still part of existence. Therefore, him surviving the snap was just lucky. But then I'm like you, I also partially had the same thought about, well, what if the quantum realm is almost sits outside of existence, and being in the quantum realm actually shielded him from the snap? Now, out of the 4 of them, 3 of them disappeared. So odds are at least one of them was going to survive. Odds are, although like we discussed a little bit earlier, it doesn't necessarily mean they all would have survived anyway. But I think he would have been fine. I think he would have been fine anyway. However, I'm not going to be surprised at all, Spencer, if your theory proves to be true, if that once we get into Avengers 4, that Scott says something along the lines of, the quantum realm exists outside of reality in many ways. And that kind of shielded me. I mean, I don't know that they're going to do that, but I won't be surprised if they do. It's a really good theory. Okay, let's see. Brandon Torres writes, loved Peña and the Scott/Cassie. Oh, Cassie stuff was great. But thought the story, pacing, and villains were pretty bad. My least favorite MCU since Thor 2. I thought the pacing was great. Yeah, so I'm going to disagree with you on the pacing stuff. I thought the pacing was fantastic. One of the best paced movies, I think, ever in the MCU. The villains, the Walton Goggins character was bad. The Ghost character was fine. The Ghost character was good. Just understanding that the purpose of that character was different than, say, the purpose of Killmonger in Black Panther, and different from the purpose of Thanos in Infinity War. It was just a character with a different purpose. Other than that, I thought the character was fine. The story, I had no problem with the story. It was a standalone, isolated story about them trying to get Michelle Pfeiffer back. And that was the story. And on that level, I really had no problem with it. So, but hey, man, it's all subjective. Like, I'm sure there are people out there who think Ant-Man and the Wasp is the best MCU movie of the year. Then you'll get people like me that I think it's the 3rd best MCU movie of the year, but still think it's really great. And there's going to be some people like you, Brandon, a lot of people, I'm sure, that thought, it was kind of subpar. But that's the beauty of the subjectivity of film. And I'm sure, Brandon, that you're not alone in that. For me, it was much better than it was to you. But hey, your opinion is no less valid than mine. So if that's the way it worked for you, then that's the way it worked for you. I wish you enjoyed it more, but you didn't, and that's totally fine. Let's see. Cameron Drost writes, like you, I honestly thought Just Hope, like Mom and Cassie, which we don't know yet, would dust, which would, okay, let me try this again, Cameron. Like you, I honestly thought Just Hope, the Mom, and Cassie, which we don't know yet, would dust, which would give Scott motivation to join in and Hank to actually work with Stark to use the quantum realm. So much for that idea. Well, I said even before Ant-Man and the Wasp came out, there are a lot of people saying, oh, his daughter has to die. That'll give him motivation to join in. What? He doesn't need... If half the population of the Earth disappeared, Scott wouldn't need more motivation to get involved and try to help. I mean, yes, is it even more motivation if his daughter... Sure, but half the planet died. Half the planet was murdered, just like that. Scott wouldn't need more motivation than that to get... So that's why I always said, no. Hank, on the other hand, being a little bit more prickly of a character, Hank may have needed more motivation. So his daughter dying, all that kind of stuff. And I agree with you, man. I really thought Hank was going to be part of the team. You know, that fine, I'll set aside my distrust of the Starks and I'll get involved and he might have needed extra motivation, but like you said, there goes that theory that I had because I thought he was going to be part of the team in Avengers 4. Clearly I was wrong. And there goes that. So I completely agree. Yeah, it's so much for that idea. And it's just really weird. I really thought it made sense. I really thought it made sense that Hank, being the world's foremost expert on quantum realm stuff, that you would have needed him for whatever it is they were going to try to do. I mean, first of all, let's admit this right up front. We're just assuming that the quantum realm has anything to do with Avengers 4. And by the way, there's this popular theory that, for good reason, that time travel may not have anything to do with Avengers 4. But John, we saw a set who cares? We've all been misled by set pictures before. We've all seen set pictures that we thought meant one thing and didn't mean that at all. So even though we all have our theories, And I happen to agree with a number of the theories. Let's acknowledge right now that they're just theories and they may not be true at all. Quantum realm may have nothing to do with the next Avengers movie. Time travel may have nothing to do with the next Avengers movie. We're all just operating on assumptions off of some out-of-context leaked set pictures. And we've seen many examples where theories based on out-of-context set pictures turned out to be totally wrong. So let's just acknowledge that right now, but yeah, Cameron, so much for our theory of Hank playing an integral part of the solution. There goes that idea. All right, here. Ethan's Tech World writes, I felt like the plot had some issues, that it was going back and forth like hot potato with the lab. Like the film, not one of my favorites. Thanks. I don't know if it had any plot issues. I thought the plot was simple. It was a simple plot. But I personally, despite the fact that, it's my third favorite MCU movie of the year, and I don't like it as much as the first Ant-Man, I honestly didn't have an issue with the plot. I have an issue with a number of things in the movie. But I honestly didn't have any issues with the plot. I thought that the plot was solid. Simple, but solid. They do go back and forth a lot, but to me that just contributed to the pace of the film. So, yeah, I totally see where you're coming from, Ethan. It didn't hit me that way. And maybe it's potato, maybe that's the case here, but it didn't hit me that way. I thought the plot was fairly solid, as simple as it was. And I certainly thought the back and forth added to that kinetic energy feel of it, that the pace was really quite good. But hey, you saw it once. Maybe if I see it a few more times, I might totally see it your way too, man. All right, let's move on here to Jay Bling, who writes, based on the Animal House footage of Larry Krueger learning about particles in our fingernails containing their own universe, I believe Hank Pym is Kroger. Animal House takes place in the 1960s. All right. Maybe that's what was being referenced a little bit earlier, too. That could totally be a part of it, right? That could totally be a part of it. I got to share this with you. I know it's a little bit of a side trail here, Jabling, but your comment here reminds me of another mind-blowing thing that I got hit with today. And I put this up on Twitter. But I saw this fan-made theory video. Because, everybody puts out their own fan theory videos, right? But I saw this one fan theory video today that just blew my mind. And it's kind of in line with what you're saying here, Jay Bling, is that the fan theory video is this. Mary Poppins was a student of Hogwarts. Think about it. Mary Poppins was a student at Hogwarts. Mary Poppins universe and the Harry Potter universe are in the same universe. Totally blew my mind. So kind of similar to what you were just talking about there, Jay. Murray Reich writes, once that Partridge Family song came on in the beginning, I was already hooked in the film. You know what? I just loved that opening thing. I mean, the whole playing with the Cassie and her dad playing in their fort and all that kind of stuff and all the trouble that dad goes through to give his daughter a fun adventure. I mean, there's so much about look, a lot of things in particular, or a lot of things in general, Murray, I should say, in the beginning, in the first part of this film, won me over. A lot of things won me over in the opening of this film on a huge, huge level. And that is certainly one of them, too. All right. Cameron Drost writes, do you feel they are using the dusting everybody as a cop-out for not having to explain people who are always saying, well, why didn't superheroes show up? Hence dusting people we know coming back. No, because they've never cared. I mean, the MCU seems to not care about. It's only the fans who go, and this is my problem with big shared cinematic universes, that everybody's supposed to show up in every movie. And when they don't, fans feel like they demand an answer for what? But the MCU's never really cared all that much. So if the MCU, here's my thoughts on this, Cameron, at any rate. If the MCU had ever shown any care about addressing why didn't so-and-so show up and why didn't so-and-so show up, if they ever showed any concern about that before, maybe you could say they're doing this dusting thing as a cop-out for why certain people don't show up in Avengers 4. But the fact of the matter is, they've never shown concern about that, and they've never cared. This is who's here. And if you like that, great. If you don't like that, too bad. Why didn't so-and-so come? because reasons. That seems to be the MCU things. Because reasons. All right? Just because reasons. So just accept that this is who's here. So, like I said, I think if the MCU had ever shown any signs that they were really worried about that stuff, then maybe we could look at what they're doing here as a setup excuse for why they don't have certain heroes, or they didn't want certain heroes in Avengers 4. But the fact of the matter is they've never shown any concern for that. They've never shown any care. You know, why in Iron Man 3 didn't so-and-so show up and so-and-so show up? The MCU says, because reasons. And just leaves it at that, right? So because they've never really shown any concern about that, I don't think they're using this as any sort of a cop-out, because they don't feel like they need an excuse. They've never shown that they felt they have any sort of need to provide an explanation or an excuse. Just because reasons. And I'm fine with that, to be honest with you. I'm perfectly fine with that. So that's just kind of how I see it, Cameron, at any rate. All right. Murray Reich writes, do you think Peña and Scott's daughter are still alive? I'm going to go yes. I mean, just on the law of averages, it already seems like a lot of people in Scott's life just died. I mean, like, so half of them, theoretically, by law of averages, half of them should be alive. As we explained, doesn't have to work out that way, but it seems to stand to reason. So without any proof, without any empirical evidence to back it up, I'm going to say, yes, I still believe that Luis and Scott's daughter are still alive. I'm going to believe that until shown otherwise. I'm going to believe they are. All right. Zombatron, 5678 writes, chances we get Luis in Avengers 4. Cap goes up to him, I need Scott, and he's freaking out and goes into one of his stories trying to explain where he is. You know what? I'm going to bet that Michael Peña is not in Avengers 4. Because, again, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to use their characters in such a way that serves the movie. I do not think Michael Peña's character will serve the tone that they want to have in Avengers 4. I don't think Michael Peña's character will serve the tone that the MCU wants to have in Avengers 4. I think, because can you imagine like Luis's character in Avengers Infinity War? It would have been jarring to the tone that was in that movie, right? Because of that, Kevin Feige knows, use the characters that serve the story. I don't think Michael Peña's character serves the overall tone, and it might be a little bit of a distraction in the movie. It might feel jarring in the movie. While I could watch an entire movie just about his character, it may not work with what they're going for in Avengers 4. So, while I got nothing to back this up with, my guess is that we're not going to see Michael Peña's character in Avengers 4. That's my guess. Okay, Ben Kenobi writes, feelings about the Stan Lee cameo. I thought it was great. Actually, I've heard a number of people say it was their favorite Stan Lee cameo ever. Mine is still his cameo in the first Deadpool movie. Stan Lee as a strip club DJ, to me, will always be the best Stan Lee cameo ever. But I'm not kidding, man. I heard a number of people saying that they felt like that Stan Lee cameo was their favorite Stan Lee cameo out of any of the movies that they've done. I thought it was great. I really did. I thought it was wonderful. Still not as good as the Deadpool strip club DJ, but pretty fantastic nonetheless. Let's see. Zombatron 5678 writes, gotta say, I love the stepfather in this one, although Cassie's mom was annoying, but I love the big family theme in the movie. I didn't think either the stepfather or the mom were in the movie enough to either really like them or be annoyed by them. That was just my take on it. Like, I did like, what's the actor's name again? Bobby Carnival. I thought he was really good in it. I've always liked his character, right from the first movie. I thought his character was good. I thought you actually could have done a little bit more with the extended family. But to be honest with you, I didn't think they were in the movie enough to either, for me personally at any rate, to get very attached to them, nor to be annoyed by them. By either extreme, you know what I'm saying? So that's just kind of how I felt about it. All right. Zombatron follows it up with, was Scott right to go with Cap without telling anyone? I like how that movie is what caused his problems in this one, consequences for your actions. No, I agree. I do really like the fact that the repercussions of their actions in previous movies have repercussions. They have consequences in future movies. And I like the fact that that decision to help Captain America led to his predicament. Unsurprisingly, because in Civil War, the last time we see him, he's in a prison cell, right? So that's the last time we see him. But the fact that it also caused relationship problems with him and Hope and him and Hank. And I like that they did that. Was he right to go? Of course he was. He probably wasn't thinking about it. But when, these guys show up that says Captain America needs your help, and they already established in the first movie that he's a big fan of the Avengers, right? They established in the first Ant-Man that he is a big fan of the Avengers. I mean, he was just geeking out being around Falcon, for heaven's sakes, right? So to me, it was consistent with his character to want to help, and it was consistent with what we know of him that he would want to help, and it was the right thing to do to want to help. Should he have given Hope and Hank a heads up? Maybe yes, but again, as he explains, it was pretty consistent that he didn't, because he understands that Hank does not like Stark. He does not want him getting involved with the Avengers and one way, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So to me, yeah, it was right that he did it, but even though it was the right thing, you can do the right thing and still have to face consequences, right? Sometimes the right thing still carries consequences with it. And I thought they did that with the movie, and I really liked the way they handled it. To be honest, I thought I really did enjoy the way they handled it. So yeah, I think yes. All right, let's see. Chris, we took a little bit of a jump. Give me a second here. Okay, here we go. Chris Miner writes, now I'm really curious how Ant-Man gets out of the quantum realm. By the way, love the movie. It's not truth serum. That gag. I hope they figure out a way to implement that gag into another movie. I really do. I really hope they will. And I also am curious. But let's not forget, he figured out a way to get himself out of it last time. I gotta believe he's gonna figure out a way to get himself out of it this time. Or, Tony is trying to track down Hank Pym, tracks down this van, finds this situation as he's able to help get Scott out. But yeah, he'll figure out a way. To me, that's not the biggest issue. I think he'll figure out a way to get himself out, to be honest with you. I really do. Although they might come up with some other plot device to do that. Chris follows up, assuming she's alive, do you see Ghost returning? Maybe. I mean, if for no other reason, part of her condition is tied up with quantum energy, right? They explained that in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now that she's kind of on the good side, could she become a player in that? I think the answer is yes. If I had to put $5 on it, I'll say no, we don't see her in Avengers 4. We may never see her again. If I had to put $5 on it, I'd say no, but I wouldn't put $50 on it. I think the possibility is there that we could. And again, they've built in a narrative purpose for it because her character is tied up with the whole notion of quantum energy. Therefore, since we're assuming, maybe wrongly so, but since we're assuming that the quantum realm and quantum energy could have something to do with what goes on in Avengers 4, it does open the possibility that Ghost could be back. I wouldn't bet on it, but I wouldn't bet much against it either. So that's kind of how I see it right now. All right, James Bonner writes, have not seen it yet, but wanted to say have fun with the discussion, and I'll be back after the fact to see what everybody else thinks about it. Well, good for you for having the self-discipline to hold off until you can see it. Oh my God, I gotta take my jacket off here. It's I had the air conditioning booming in here before doing it, because I don't know if you guys have seen in the news, but it's been like 2 days ago, it was 117 degrees in Burbank. Yesterday it was 108. Today it's 102 so far, so it was really warm. So I had the AC in here booming for about 2 hours. And then I came into the studio, I was like, oh my gosh, it's actually really cold. So I put on the jacket, and now it's heating up in here quite a bit, so I gotta take the jacket off. Okay. So let me know what you think about it. Email me, James, when you see the movie. Let us know what you all think about it. All right. Peter Hong writes, John, do you think that Ant-Man is going to pick up some of the quantum realm abilities, knowledge that Janet did? Could be cool to see in Avengers 4. You know what? I hadn't considered that, Peter. I had not considered that. That's let's also remember, Janet was in there for decades. And before we rush to say, but in the quantum realm, time has no meaning. Well, the way Janet described it, she felt all the years. And she aged and all that kind of stuff. So she was in there for decades. So I don't know. I don't know if he will. Again, I hadn't considered it. That is a really interesting theory, and it could open up some interesting possibilities with him. But again, he's going to be in there like 1/30th of the time that that Janet was in there, right? Like maybe 1/30th of the amount of time. So I don't know. But again, it's possible. It's an interesting theory. What do you guys think? Do you think he could pick up extra abilities as a result of being in the quantum realm? Jump into the comment section. Let me know what you think. All right. Next one comes to us from... do we have another jump? We had a minor jump here. Next one comes to us from Sam Fisher, who writes, another thing I loved about this movie is that the final battle is really just one big game of keep away. It was a big shift away from Infinity War. Oh, I agree. They did so much to make this movie so different from Infinity War. And I actually think that's part of the genius of the movie. Coming out of Infinity War, one kind of movie, coming into something else where the stakes are very different, the tone is very different, the purpose of the movie is very different. And they just did. And you're absolutely right. The way they even choreographed out the action and what the action revolved around was even completely different from Infinity War, right? And I actually got a big kick out of them rushing around trying to get this building. It was basically a game of hot potato. I thought it was fun, trying to keep track of everything, and different people picking up the ball at different points. I thought it worked. And I know it didn't work for everybody, and that's totally fine, but that part of it for me actually really did quite work, and I enjoyed that. All right. Cole Scott writes, I see what you meant about the halfway shrink and grow part. Easily one of the funniest parts of the movie. Oh yeah, talking about, because I mentioned that in my non-spoiler review, that there's a part of the movie, you'll see what I mean, they use a really great effect about the growth and whatever. That whole school scene where he just shrinks partially and he looks like a child running around, laughed my guts out. Absolutely laughed my guts out. I thought that was a great moment. I thought that was a great scene. And I thought they used it to full effect. Really just speaking to the fact that the whole movie just very creatively used the shrink and grow powers in ways that I hadn't even thought about them using it. Everything from the way Hope utilized it in her combat techniques, to how big he got, in the water, to the mid-shrink thing and how they use that for comedic effect in the school scene. They just did a lot of very cool things that way, and that's one of the things that worked for me a lot. Glad you liked that, Cole. All right. Akeem writes, Goggins didn't fit in the film for me. Such a great actor for a forgettable character. Could have done without Laurence Fishburne as well. I agree with you about the Walton Goggins thing. They did not need Walton Goggins to play that role. If anything, having such a high talent, high caliber actor in that role kind of highlighted how poor of a character it was. If you had just put some no-name actor in that role, that character probably wouldn't have bugged us as much, right? If you had put just some no-name actor in that role, it would have drawn less attention to the character. Therefore, we probably would have been more forgiving about how kind of a lackluster character it was. But by putting in Walton Goggins, who is just instantly going to draw our attention whenever he's on screen because he's Walton Goggins, it kind of highlighted, one of the inadvertent drawbacks of that was that it kind of highlighted the weaknesses of the character. Putting in a great actor actually highlighted the weaknesses of the character. Go figure. It was probably completely unintentional that it happened that way, but it is the way that it worked out. And again, I'm sure they didn't think the character was weak. On the page, the way they read the script, they probably thought the character was going to be great. Didn't work out that way, though. And I agree with you. I think having Goggins in there just emphasized how poor of a character it was. So that's just one way of looking at it, I guess. Ian Wendu writes, the mid-credit scene caught me off guard. And you know, that's what I was saying earlier. The movie itself, see, I went into the movie expecting dusting in the post-credit scene. But then the movie itself, as I'm watching it, changed my mind. I thought, no, they're not going to do dusting in this. And that might have been by design, because I completely agree with you, Ian. I went in expecting the dusting, and yet the dusting caught me totally off guard. Very well orchestrated. I gotta say, very well orchestrated on their part that they did that, because I know you and I aren't the only ones that caught off guard, man. Not at all. Even though I went into the movie expecting it, they convinced me otherwise and then caught me off guard. It was a great sleight of hand. Patrick Conway writes, Wu seemed like Coulson in Thor, not as smart and joke. The parole officer, the FBI parole officer, terrible character, I thought. Which is really too bad, because you had Asian Jim in there, who was also from Fresh Off the Boat. He's so great. I was so excited when I saw him pop up on screen, because I thought this is going to be gold, because this dude has such great charm and charisma and brings such great effect to any humor he does. And then they made the character kind of like a bumbling idiot. And I was like, oh, come on. Really? Now, the character still had some pretty funny lines. But, I thought a waste of a character. A really underutilized and poorly utilized and wrongly utilized character that you could have made much better. Just by giving him, like, he's supposed to be this senior guy in the FBI. Maybe don't make him a bumbling idiot. You know? Sure, give him the quirky personality. Sure, give him that. But don't make him an incompetent boob who's stupid and dumb. I mean, to me, that just took away from it. And I think they could have done much better there. I really do. Especially considering the great performer you had in the role. Let's see. Gio writes, a great palate cleanser, talk with daughter. Oh, yeah, the talk with the daughter was so great. That's where the heart came from. I especially loved, because the first time I saw the movie, Anne was with me. And I remember that whole scene when she's talking about a partner. And she says, I meant I'd be your partner. And the dad laughs, and it goes back to her face. And she looked like, great little performance, by the way. She looked legitimately hurt. She just, don't laugh. And it's like, oh, like my heart just broke when she said it was a beautiful conversation. So well done. Felt so natural, and it didn't feel forced, didn't feel scripted to me. It felt like a very, very organic conversation of a dad talking to his daughter. Felt great to me. Totally did. And again, that same use of the word palate cleanser. The movie itself is a great palate cleanser coming out of Infinity War. It really, really was. Alex Von Gollum writes, hey, John, what if Scott had been the one dusting? What would Hank, Janet, and Hope have done? Your thoughts? Well, I think what probably would have happened was at that point, Hank would have done what I was sort of expecting him to do, which was say, this is worth me setting aside my personal problems and biases and problems with the Stark family and Avengers and whatever, and work with them to come up with the solution. See, that's what I thought Hank was going to do anyway, because I didn't think he was going to dust. So had Scott been the only one who dusted, and Hank was the one left, I think Hank would have done what I was originally thinking he was going to do anyway. I think it would have been enough motivation for him, and the scale, half the people of Earth have died. I think that would have been enough of an impetus for him to go, I need to set aside my problems with the Starks, and my distrust of the government, and my distrust of the Avengers, and all that kind of stuff, to work with them to come up with a solution. And I think Janet and Hope, clearly, because she wants to get Scott back. She's in love with Scott. Janet, because, yeah, half the world just died. So I think that's probably what he's seeing, which is what I thought he was going to do, leading into the main problem. And it's starting to look like YouTube, for those of you watching live, is having the same kind of streaming issue here. Hold on, let me put this in the chat here. Streaming issues. Hold tight. So I'm just going to keep going with the show and believe it's going to correct itself. And it looks like maybe it has corrected itself again. So we're back up and running again. So you might see a little bit of a skip in this. But yeah, anyway, that's great stuff. That's exactly what I think Hank would have done. He would have done what I thought he was going to do anyway, had he survived. Okay. Let's see here. Ian Nguyen-Do writes, I think he gets out in the future in Avengers 4. I don't know. See, from what I understand, I don't know how far ahead Avengers 4 jumps. I don't think it jumps that far ahead. So, I mean, it's a theory, and you're not alone in that theory, Ian, by the way. There's a bunch of people who have that kind of theory. So let's just see what kind of works itself out there. LeBurn007 writes, seems like the quantum realm is going to play a big part moving forward. Janet Van Dyne mentioned time moves differently in there. Yeah, but at the same time, she's aged, right? It didn't move that differently. And she seemed very aware of how long she was in there. So I'm not sure. Again, they kind of give us the impression that it'll play an important part moving forward, but we don't know that for sure. I agree with you, though, that does seem to be the hints they're dropping. That does seem to be what they're insinuating and what they're suggesting could happen. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm just going to check something on here quick. You might... But at the same... Okay, everything's still working for it. Good, we're still up and running. So we'll have to see. I mean, I think a lot of us, our assumption is the quantum realm, quantum time, quantum energy, that will have something to do with whatever solutions they're going to come up with in Avengers 4. But let's just be careful. That's just our assumption. That's what we're assuming at this point, and we simply don't know. So we're going to have to be careful with the big assumptions, I think. All right, let's move on here. Next one comes to us from Ben Rayner, who writes, Half-Shrunken Ant-Man was great. Oh, yeah, we talked about that just a few minutes ago. Absolutely, Half-Shrunken Ant-Man was great. Peter Hong writes, Scott's cardboard play tunnel was so cool, creative. You know, it's like we said earlier, it's just one of the things that got me into the movie instantly. A dad putting in great effort to make a fun adventure for his daughter and have great quality time with his daughter. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. That thing right off the bat just got me right into the movie right away. DC Patience writes, looks like $76 million opening weekend, below estimates. I don't know. It's kind of roughly close to where, I mean, the estimates I heard was 80, so it's right in the neighborhood. It's a big jump over what the first one made. I mean, because if I go back and look, let me just double check here. If I look up box office mojo and we look at the first Ant-Man, see, Ant-Man. The first Ant-Man movie on its opening weekend made $57 million. The first Ant-Man made $57 million in its opening weekend. If the second one comes out and makes like a 30% jump and makes $76 million, I think that's great. I think they've got to be very, very happy with that. So yeah, if it makes that big of a jump, I think they got to be happy with it. All right. Holland Love writes, hey everybody, I'm late to the stream, so I'm sorry if it's been asked already. Are they implying Scott still had control of the any after the snap? Are they implying Scott still had control of the any after the snap? I don't know what you mean by the any. Are they implying Scott still had control of the any after the snap? Dude, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to address that. Maybe if you guys in the chat board kind of, you figured out what it is he's talking about, please by all means answer that question. Start a discussion in the chat board and answer. If you think you figured out what it is he's asking, answer the question in there for him. All right. Chase Schleich writes, my main concern with the film was the you only have 2 hours to find me bit. It's cliche and they didn't need it. They already had a ticking clock with Ghost trying drain Janet before they pull her out. I don't know about that. I don't know. It seems to me that the whole setup of it was a certain window opened that gave them a certain fixed amount of time to take advantage of. Is it a tried cliche in some movies? Yes. But it's a cliche that I thought worked. So while I had some issues with the movie, for me in this one, it's a cliche that did actually kind of work for me. So I think it worked. I think it worked fine. So I'm completely on board with it. I think it worked for me just fine. Okay, let's keep moving here. Frank Bono writes, point of the end credit scene was not the ant playing the drums, but you can hear the warning signal in the background indicating that yes, Scott's family got dusted as well. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know that I agree with that at all, as a matter of fact. Hold on a second. Yeah, I don't think I'm on board with that. I don't think there's any kind of a warning. I think that warning thing was the proximity warning in the house itself, like his proximity, like alarm system warning thing. I thought that was what they were going for there. I honestly didn't take it as being any kind of an indicator that his family wasn't there. Because remember, I think that was Scott's house too. I don't know why Scott's family would have been in there in the first place. So, yeah, I don't see it that way. Let me just double check something here. Anyway, but that's just the way I saw it. Okay, let's move on here. Jean-Francois Dorian. They put post-credits scenes in the UN from Black Panther in the trailers too. Yes, but it didn't give everything away. Like, the ant playing the drums was the whole gag, right? That was the whole gag of the post-credit scene, and they just showed the punchline. Whereas I felt like it was a little bit different with the Black Panther thing. I do, because I don't feel like the Black Panther thing gave anything away, because the Black Panther scene was consistent with what we knew about the rest of the movie anyway. So while you are correct, I still feel like it's a different thing in general. All right, and our next question comes to us from D. Patience, who writes, "We skipped Ant-Man and the Wasp. Trailers had most action scenes." Believe me, D, you do not get, look, it's a 2-hour plus movie. You did not get nearly everything that's in this film from those 4 to 6 minutes of trailers. Believe me, you didn't. There is a lot. This is not a situation where the trailers have all the best parts of the movies. It does not. The best, funniest parts of this movie are not in the trailers. The best action parts of this movie are not in the trailers. At least that's how I feel about it. So I think you'd be good to go see it. I mean, it's cool. If you don't want to spend your money and going to see it, I get it. That's fine. You got to make those choices for sure. But if you were to ask me, did the trailers give away all the best parts of the movie? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I still think it's something you should absolutely run out and see if you get a chance. All right. Anthony R. writes, "So Janet just goes back to work with her husband instead of taking a breather and seeing what she missed in the last 30 years, like superheroes." Well, here's the thing, though. We don't know exactly when the events of Ant-Man and the Wasp take place. We know that it's in between the events of Captain America Civil War and the events of Infinity War. But remember, before the post-credit scene, her and Hank, they put their house on a beautiful beach, and they are going to take time to relax. But at the same time, there is this pressing issue that this girl that they've now befriended, this ghost girl, is dying. She's going to die. And so while they've taken a breath and they set up their house on a beautiful tropic beach and they're going to enjoy themselves, at the same time, there is a pressing issue. This girl that they have befriended is dying, and they need to try to save her life. And that's what they're in the process of doing. So it's not like they were running around the streets fighting crime. They're trying to solve a problem to help save a girl's life. And I think that made it totally, I'll be honest with you, Anthony, I thought that worked for me. That did work on that thing. And again, before the post-credit scene, they showed that she is going to take in and relax and enjoy life a bit. But at the same time, they've got a pressing issue. So I thought personally they addressed both of them pretty well. At least that's how I saw it, myself at any rate. Jordan's channel writes, "Making a joke about wearing a baseball cap." Oh, God, I can't even remember the joke now. I can't remember the joke. Damn it. Now that you're saying it, I think I'm remembering something. Oh, but I can't comment on it. The rest of you know what it is Jordan's talking about. I'm having a brain freeze for whatever reason. All right. Iggy is Horrible writes, "The post-credit scene was dreadful. That ant was copying Scott's daily routine, meaning Scott's been gone for a long time, and the emergency signal." Sorry again. Sorry, guys, I'm having a bad streak here. I'm not really quite sure I'm following what it is you're saying. The post-credit scene was dreadful. The ant was copying Ant's daily routine, meaning Scott's been gone for a long time, and the emergency signal. I don't know what you mean. First of all, it doesn't necessarily mean he's been gone for a long time. He could have been gone for one day. So it just means he's gone. But I have a feeling, Iggy, I'm not quite understanding what it is you're saying. Sorry about that, man. The Halo Brony writes, In defense of the Ant credit scene, the ominous realization of the dusting happened in the world. All of Scott's family is dusted, plus will return. Well, again, unless I'm missing something, which is totally possible, I miss things sometimes, that is in Scott's house, not Scott's family's house. So I don't believe an empty Scott's house means his family's dusted, because his family would be at their family's house. They don't... Did he move in with them at the end? I don't think he moved in with them at the end, did he? I don't know. I might be totally brain freezing on that. Maybe there was that instance where they moved in together, and I'm totally flaking on it. Sorry about that, guys. Iggy is Horrible writes, check out Honest Trailer commentary with Ant-Man with Reed. He credited the writers of the sequel for the Luis flashback, uncredited for the first one. Check out Honest Trailer commentary with Ant-Man with Reed. Or you mean Peyton Reed. He credited the writers of the sequel for the Luis flashback, uncredited for the first one. Again, I'm not sure I'm following what you're saying. Sorry about that, man. Der Wunderbar writes, have you seen Videodrome? That's a weird movie. We're here to talk about Ant-Man. Sorry, dude. Anthony writes, a nitpick of mine that I have to overcome is people skipping MCU movies. Some in my theater were confused by the middle credits because they skipped Avengers. I was shocked. Sometimes I get too geeky. Oh, well, I mean, look, you can't... Not everybody's going to go... We should not get peeved at people who choose not to see certain movies, right? Look, the fact of the matter is, Infinity War and Ant-Man are very different movies. And I am absolutely sure there are people out there who would not enjoy Infinity War that would enjoy Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? So, I get it. We're going, wait a minute, how did you not see Avengers Infinity War? I get that. I totally get that. But we shouldn't get annoyed or consider it a peeve. You're right, it is a nitpick. We got to get past that not everybody's going to see every movie. And just because you would like one comic book movie does not mean you'd like them all. Logan is very different from Spider-Man. Infinity War is very different from Ant-Man. So, I can think of some people that I know that probably wouldn't like Infinity War, but they probably would like Ant-Man and the Wasp, and vice versa, right? So, I agree with you. Sometimes, Anthony, we got to get out of our own heads and just look at it from a standard, average moviegoer's perspective sometimes. Because sometimes we forget to do that. I'm guilty of that too, totally. Okay, Dakota Barber writes, saw it the second time, really like it, and love the mid-credit scene. Yeah, I've seen it twice now. Love the mid-credit scene. Mostly, again, because I described a little bit earlier, the movie convinced me that that wasn't going to happen. And then it did, and it was beautiful the way it caught me off guard. Dakota follows it up with, also, great truth serum scene with Luis was great. Yeah, that was a great on-running gag, as long as with the Baba Yaga, or whatever it is they called it, with the ghost. That was great, too. I love those running gags. I really did. Jeremy Green writes, I hope Cap doesn't die in Avengers 4. Well, we're here to talk about Ant-Man, but obviously, I completely agree with you, Jeremy. Captain America is the heart and soul of the MCU. I really hope they don't kill him off. Ranrick writes, Foster tells Ghost she has weeks left. Janet has hours. Why did they not tell them to help us get Janet and we can save you? Tons of time, just reasons. Oh, no, but remember, they thought they needed to harness the quantum energy out of Janet, and what Hope and Hank were afraid of was that what they wanted to do to Janet could kill Janet. Time wasn't on that issue, time wasn't the issue. Okay, on that point, time wasn't the issue. It wasn't about having enough time. It was that they thought the answer was extracting quantum energy out of Janet, to which Hank and Hope feared doing something that could rip Janet apart and kill her. You know, we're going through all this work to get her back, and you're just going to kill her to save her. That was the problem. It wasn't the time issue. It was Hank feared that there was a strong possibility that doing what Ghost and Laurence Fishburne wanted to do was going to kill Janet in the process. And that was the sticking point. Not time. That was the sticking point, if we're remembering it correctly. Let's see. Michael Soleric, had another jump here. Let's see, here we go. Michael Soleric writes, Paul Rudd was great in this movie. He was funny, which is to be expected, but he also shows Scott really cares about his daughter. He also plays a great Janet. Yeah, that scene with the Janet. Again, not a scene that I was on board with at first, and then it got me on board with it, and I actually ended up really quite enjoying it. But you're right. One of the coolest things, it's one thing to make a straight-up comedy. It's another thing to show a comedy with heart. And especially the daughter, that's what the daughter brings out of Scott, is it brings the heart to it. Because even in the emotional scenes between Hope and Scott, and Hank and Scott, there's an element missing. When it's with his daughter, that's when you feel it. And it brings a really cool extra dimension to the film that otherwise would have been missing, I think. So I agree with you totally. All right. Davies Golden Duck writes, will the quantum healing powers be in Avengers 4? I mean, it really all depends. It seems like Janet was the one who had that power. And like we discussed a little bit earlier, somebody's wondering, hey, could Scott being in there give him that ability too? Well, he's going to be in there a lot less than Janet was, like a lot shorter. Plus, that quantum healing thing, that was for the girl's specific condition. That was for Ghost's specific condition. Whether there would be other applications for it, I don't know. I simply don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's an interesting thought, Davies, and something we've been talking about here already. I simply just don't know. So many question marks surrounding that. First of all, does the quantum energy have the abilities to do things like for other conditions? We don't know. Would Scott even be in the quantum realm long enough? Because Janet was in there for decades absorbing it, right? He's going to be in there for a much shorter window of time. Will it have the same effect? We don't know. And even if it does, is it something that Avengers 4 is going to want to utilize? We don't know. There's so many question marks surrounding it. Awesome stuff to talk about. Just that it's really difficult to have any kind of concrete answers, right? At this point. Okay. Bark Ruffalo, I love that. Do you think Hope will use her growing powers? Well, here's the thing. We don't know that Hank built that into her suit. We don't know if he built the Goliath protocol into Wasp's suit. That might not be an ability that Wasp has. So I don't know. And again, I use the words I don't know. I don't know if she even has that ability. So I don't know if the question is she just chose not to use her growing powers, or does she even have the growing powers? Just because it's in the one suit doesn't mean it's in the other. Remember, she's got wings, Ant-Man doesn't. She has blasters, Ant-Man doesn't. Ant-Man's suit could have the Goliath protocols in it, and the Wasp suit doesn't. So I don't think they ever definitively gave an answer whether her suit even has that ability. So instead of asking the question, will she use her growing ability, I think the question is, does she even have it? Because I have my doubts that she even has that ability. I think that might be unique to the Ant-Man suit, just like wings and blasters are unique to the Wasp suit. Could be wrong about that, but that's just kind of the way I interpreted it. Let's see here. Michael Soleric writes, I enjoyed the fact this was a standalone. Just like an actual comic book, not every problem needs the full Avengers to solve. Let Ant-Man solve it himself. Not only that, Michael, the other thing that I really appreciate about the Ant-Man films, both of them in particular, is that it changes levels in the MCU. Not every movie you put out needs to be or should be about save the world, save the universe, save the world, save the universe. You gotta change up levels or it's gonna get tiring. And I like the fact that really, the first one's about him saving his family. This one is about saving Janet. It's not about saving the galaxy. It's not saving the planet. This one's about saving one person. At the end of the day, that's what it was about. It was about saving Janet. And I like that the MCU understands that they need to change levels to keep it fresh. Because if you just, every single movie is about saving the galaxy, saving the galaxy, saving the planet, that can become tiring. And you can start to become desensitized to it as an audience member. And I like the fact that they changed levels on that in that way. So I think that was really important. Again, and doing it in a standalone fashion is also pretty important. Okay. Let's see. Oscar Flores writes, Insane how Fishburne looks exactly like how he did in Boys in the Hood. The de-aging CGI was incredible. I mean, they did a great job with it across the board. They really did. I mean, because not just that, but Michael Douglas looked like a younger Michael Douglas. Michelle Pfeiffer looked like a younger Michelle Pfeiffer. Because we have things to cross-reference that with, right? And it is great. And they did it as well, equally as good on Laurence Fishburne as well. So totally. Gabe Campbell writes, just walked out of seeing it, and it was a lot of fun. Villains were really weak, but it was fun overall, and I liked the first one more, but this was good. I'm completely on board with you. Weak villains, particularly the Goggins one. The Ghost one was a weak villain, but used the way they wanted to use it, so I was fine with that. Not quite as good as the first one, but a truly enjoyable, fun film that, honestly, a lot of people seem to like it better than the first one. I don't. That's fine. But overall, still just a really, really good, enjoyable film. All right, and the final comment today, and we wrap this thing up, comes to us from Efren Garcia, who writes, enjoyed the movie. Little homie next to me yelled, I hate you, Thanos, when the three characters got dusted. That's awesome. That reminds me, the second time I saw Avengers Infinity War, my brother-in-law, Ray, who does the graphics for me, me and Ray went to go see it, and Ray hadn't seen it yet. And we ended up sitting beside this dude and his little guy. And there was a young little dude, and he was fun. And Ray was asking, who's your favorite? He says, Thanos. It's like, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, kid, you haven't seen this movie yet. Just wait. And like when everybody's dying at the end, the kid crawled under his dad's jacket because he was scared. It was so precious. So that just reminds me of that little comment. I hate you, Thanos. That's funny. I love experiences like that in a movie theater. I really do. I love experiences like that in a movie theater. All right, guys, that will wrap it up for our open spoiler discussion of Ant-Man and the Wasp. Thank you so much for participating. For those of you who were watching the stream live earlier, real apologies for this happens sometimes. I don't get it. YouTube is just having problems taking the stream. Like I said, I double-checked the speedtest.net. My upload speed was totally rock solid. So I really don't know. It's very frustrating when that happens. But if you guys are watching this pre-recorded afterwards, there was some problem with the live streaming. So my apologies for those of you who were watching this live when I was doing it live. Anyway, guys, thanks for participating in this. Don't forget the John Campea Show is every morning at 8:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday, talking about all the latest movie news, stuff like that. We do open mic in the afternoons and a lot of other fun stuff along the way. Again, guys, thanks for being here and being a part of this. My name's John Campea, and until our next video, bye-bye.